Sup guys, welcome to episode 5 of the Journey to Grandmaster series, where I explain 3 games that I played recently in my journey to becoming a Grandmaster. First game, d4, c6, bishop to f4, d5, e3, knight to f6, c4, bishop b to d7, which I thought was a weird move, blocking in his bishop. He should have played bishop to f5 here, but he played bishop b to d7, knight to c3, putting more pressure on the d5 pawn. Plays e6, defending the d5 pawn even more. Knight to f3. Knight plays bishop b4, pinning my knight. I love to play rook to c1 in this position. For example, if bishop takes, pawn can take, and you can liquidate this weak c4 pawn by taking, and you have another pawn to push through after they take back. Then you can also take with the rook to potentially have an open c-file here in some lines. So after rook to c1, my opponent plays knight to e4, which I'm happy to see, because this allows c takes d5. This allows bishop to d3 developing. This also is what I like to call a low elo player move, because let's say, because if bishop to d3, if he castles, I castle, and he's forced to take, and then pawn takes, and then some low elo players play bishop to a3, and then you have the b file, completely locking this bishop in for most of the game. And you can also liquidate this pawn, and if takes, bishop can take. So that's why I like it when my opponents play this move. This move also doesn't defend d5 anymore, so c takes d5 is a good move here. And then he played c takes d5, giving me the c file. He should have played e takes d5 here, blocking the c file. Then I would have to play a minority attack sometime in the future by playing a4 and b5, or just b5 directly, making these pawns weak. But he plays c takes d5, giving me the c file. I play bishop to d3 developing, getting ready to castle, and when I castle he's actually forced to take. So he takes now, bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, and now he's attacking a protected pawn. And he goes back to f6 because he realized that this is a waste of a tempo. So he goes back to f6. I play castles. He goes h6. I play c4, trying to get the c file open even more for my rook. Castles. C takes d5. He plays knight takes d5. I go back to g3. Here I actually calculated bishop to d6 and rook to e8, and I was kind of scared of, well actually no, I wasn't scared, but I calculated if he goes knight to b6 I would have to go back to g3 anyways, so I just played g3 instead, because I didn't see a point in just gaining a tempo on the rook if I'm just going to go back to g3 anyways. But the best move was actually bishop d6, rook to e8, and then going back to g3. So rook to e8 is played anyways, and I go queen to b3 because I calculated that if he goes knight to b6, trying to activate his bishop and have his king possibly protect the knight, because I believe rook to e8 was played to push e5 at some point. So I kind of pinned the knight to the pawn here, and I calculated that if knight went to b6, I have h4, h5, booting it back. So after queen to b3, he goes knight to f6. I play h3 here. This move is really bad, but I play h3 here. It's not the best move, but I realized that he was trying to trade off my bishop by knight to h5, so I wanted to keep it. Because if he went knight to h5, I don't really have any good moves to go to. Because if e5, he could boot me out with f6, and I would have to go back anyways, allowing the captures. And then he could possibly push e5, so I just played h3, keeping my strong dark square bishop. He goes bishop, but this allows him to develop his bishop to d7, making it active. And I saw that his pawn on b7 was undefended. And I took a long think here, making sure it's not a trap or anything. And I took the pawn on b7. Let's say rook. Here I could just take on a7. There's no threat. So free pawn on b7. Rook to e7. Doing a discovered attack, I play bishop to d6, pushing his rook back to e8. And I play knight to e5, putting pressure on this bishop. I realize after this move it's not really a good move because this bishop can't really go backwards right now if it needs to escape. So he plays queen to b6, forking the bishop and the queen. I take on b6. The other move here was a6, forcing the queen to take me instead and have the bishop take. But I play queen takes b6. And here he should have played a takes b6, putting pressure on my a2 pawn. But he does not play that. He plays knight takes b6 for some reason. And here I play knight takes d7, trading off his light squared bishop because the position is open and my bishops are way stronger than his two knights here in an open position like this. F takes d7. I play rook to c7, attacking the knight, also putting my rook on the 7th rank. Plays knight to f6. I play rook f to c1, having a chokehold on the c file. F to d5, attacking my rook. Here I had 30 seconds left, and I didn't have much time to calculate many lines here. But so I kinda quickly went to c2. As you can see, I had like 8 seconds left on the clock, because this is 15:10. I gained 10 seconds, so I had like 8 seconds left. And right before I played this move, I actually saw b7 for a second, which is actually the best move, but I went to c2. Another good move is c5. But I went to c2 just to be extra safe, because I had low time on the clock. I didn't want any weird forks happening. So I played c2. He plays a5, trying to get a knight outpost on b4 to fork my pieces because the bishop is defending. I play a3, stopping any knight outpost, knight moves here. Plays rook e to d8, attacking my bishop. I go to g3. Best move is actually h2. The reason I didn't go to h2 is because if any weird thing happens on the c file, I want my king to go to h2. So I go bishop to g3. Knight to d7. I don't know what this move accomplished, but it allowed me to play c6 because I calculated a line with e4. And I know that after he plays c6, after I play rook to c6, I knew that his knight can never go back to b6, defending this other knight after I play e4. And he blunders by going backwards, because I calculated the line with e4, and now e4 is played, and he loses this knight. No, he loses this knight on b6 if he moves this knight. If he moves this knight, he loses the knight on d5, so he's forked, basically. And he plays rook a to c8. I was low on time, 30 seconds, and I saw immediately that rook trade would give me extra time, and I would still be winning with a piece up. So rook takes with check. Rook takes, and d takes e5, e takes d5, and here I was so concerned with gaining more time on the clock for the endgame that after he blundered bishop to d6, I didn't take the knight. I actually went to e2, and then I saw that immediately that I could have taken the knight. But he types in chat GG's, and I say GG's back, and he resigns here. I play a4, stopping any weird knight moves trying to get in. And yeah, that's game 1. Game 2, I'm white again. d4, d5, bishop f4, bishop c6. which is bad in the London. Unless you're playing a Chigorin variation, it's pretty decent, but e3, a6, and I play the immediate c4, e6, knight to c3, putting pressure on d5, knight to f6, defending it, knight to f3, developing, putting pressure on e5, bishop to b4, pinning my knight, rook to c1, because this is my favorite move in the position. If I'm ever pinned, rook to c1. If takes, rook can take, inducing knight to e5, knight back to c1, and now the c file is opening up with the bishop. And h6 is played here. I play h3 because I saw the moves d3, but I didn't like d3 because I didn't want my bishop here. And I was a little bit confused on what to do here. I didn't see a3. I usually play a3 after castles because that's usually the best time to do it. But I didn't see what to do here. But I guess d3 is the best move. I didn't want to play c5, of course. The engine recommends that to lock it in. So I played h3. h3 stopping h5 from happening so my bishop can stay putting pressure on the c7 pawn. And he castles. And I play a3 because usually it's the best move after castles when the rook is here to boot out the bishop or force it to trade. So bishop takes c, and rook takes c3 here is good because it usually induces players to gain a tempo on the rook, but they actually wasted a tempo themselves because now c can take d5 here. Also c takes also opens up the c file here. But here I wanted to mix things up. I always play rook takes on c3, so I play pawn takes c3. And the goal with pawn takes is that you can open up and then push your pawn again after he takes back. So he plays rook t7, knight t7. And the point behind this move is that after takes, he plays knight to d5 and I have to go to h2. So seeing that line with knight to d5, I play h2 immediately to prepare c4 without a tempo loss. But this allows him to play c6, which defends the pawn even more, but it also opens up the scope of my dark squared bishop. C takes d5, and he plays e takes d5 here. c4 is played, trying to give my rook the c file. e4 is played. This allows me to develop to d3. Sometimes a blunder can happen and I can take the knight. I can loosen the grip on e4 here with a d3, so I play d3. He plays knight to g6, which I thought was a weird move. I guess his goal was to play h4, trade off my knight, and put his queen on h4 to pressure the f2 pawn. But castles just solves that problem, so I wasn't worried about it. C takes d5, c takes d5, and here I was debating castles or rook to c7, but I wanted to experiment a bit, so I play rook to c7 instead of castles. Usually I would play castles here, just to get out of any weird stuff over there, but I play c7 to experiment a bit. This move, what I calculated was after queen to c2, most Loila players play bishop to f5, and I thought I might have g4 here, but after f5, I also calculated I could just take the rook on the pawn on b7. So this ties the bishop to b7 here, and he can't develop the bishop to f5. It also gives him the control here as well. So queen to f6 is played, putting pressure on the f2 pawn and on the knight. He's preparing knight to h4, and if I take on h4, his queen and knight will stare at my pawn and he will take with check. So to prevent all this, I just castle. He plays b5, getting ready to develop his bishop. He doesn't need to go to f5 unless provoked, but I play queen to c2, which provokes f5. Oh wait, no, he goes to e8 first. This actually gives me knight to e5, knight to e5, bishop takes e5. I actually calculated that line for a second, and then I forgot about it. So I should have played knight to e5 here. But I played knight to d2, putting pressure on his e4 knight on the outpost. And he plays bishop to f5 here. Best move. I thought I had g4, but there's some sacrifices here that does not make it work. So I didn't play g4 here. So I play knight takes e4 because I did not like the outpost. And yeah, that's basically, I didn't like the outpost here. And I realized that I couldn't boot out this knight. Not even with f3, I couldn't boot out the knight because the queen is here. But if I were to play e5 earlier, the queen wouldn't be there, so f3 would possible, maybe even g4, but because the queen is here, I can't play f3. I can't ever boot out this knight, so I just eliminate it. Knight takes e4, d takes e4, and I go to e2 defending the king side. A better move would be bishop takes and then pawn takes, so I could have attackers staring at the e4 pawn, so he's kind of tied down to it, to the defense. But I play knight takes, pawn takes, bishop to e2, putting defense on the king side here because he's starting an attack. He plays queen to g5, putting pressure on g2. He's also preparing to sacrifice his, well, he's not sacrificing the bishop, but he's trying to take on h3. So I play rook to c5, pinning his bishop to the queen so he doesn't take on h3. Plays rook a to c8. I play rook to c1 because I calculated, I'll show you in a few moves, but I wanted rook to take, pawn to take. And here I calculated he should have taken here, and then g3 just threatens to win the bishop. But the bishop could go back, but now g2's not attacked anymore. So I calculated he should have done that, and then I probably would have had a passer with a possible queen on the d file here, just to aid the c pawn. But instead he plays h4, which does absolutely nothing because g3 anyways. And here I calculated lines with knight to f3. And here I didn't really want to take if this line was here, because if takes, pawn can take. And now the bishop is looking at my queen, and I didn't like this line. I thought it was losing because I lose a bishop in the end. So what I did here was, after g3, well, what he did here was rook to e6, but if he were to play this move, I probably wouldn't take, or I would have moved my king to f1 instead. Rook to e6 is played, and I play queen to d1 here. The point of this is because now if check, I can now take, and my queen isn't on c2. That's the whole point. Yeah, getting off the pin here so that if this move ever does come, I could just take it. Also, this takes control of the d file, which is really good here. And the main reason why I played this move was because I was low on time, and I didn't want any mistakes, so I wanted to take the steam out of his kingside attack here. For example, in the game, rook to g6, bishop to g4, which forces a series of trades, which makes my kingside completely fine here. There's absolutely no attack. Here, the game wanted me to push after rook to g6, c6, c7, just to queen, because there's absolutely no threat on my kingside, because the g3 bishop is there. Because the g3 bishop is there, there's no threat at all. And I could just queen. But I play bishop g4, making sure there's absolutely nothing black can do on the king side here. So bishop takes, queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and I just start going up. And here, I didn't really want to move my bishop, so I kept it there, kept going c7. And here I should have went to e7 here, stopping the promotion. but I would have won a knight anyways, and would have won with the endgame. But he goes d6, and I take his knight, and he resigns. So third game. This game I was so proud of, because in the middle game there was so much top engine moves I played, and I played most of this game with 30 seconds left on the clock. It was like a bullet plus 10-second increment. So, I'm black here, and d4 is played, knight to f6, c4, g6. I was trying to go for a King's Indian. Knight to c3, knight to g7, goes e3 instead of e4. Because he goes e3 instead of e4, I play d5. And d5 takes up stake in the center. Threatens c4 is a really good move here, because if takes, knight can take, and then knight can take, and then queen can take, which is completely fine here. And then you'll probably play c5, opening up the bishop here. So, knight to f3. This is actually the Grunfeld defense. I have zero theory knowledge on this. I just know you play d5, and you try to open up the scope of the bishop here. So f3, castles, h3. Knight to c6. Here I was trying to think of knight moves, like knight directions, to possibly support an outpost on e4, but I couldn't find anything, so I played c6. Bishop e2 developing. I play e6, and now we're out of any known playing game here. And the point of this move is just to protect d4. And he plays b3, and I go immediately for a5, trying to break it all up. He plays a4, locking it down, and here I have an outpost on b4 now, but he also has an outpost on b5 now. So here, I play bishop to d7, preparing. For example, let's say I play b4 and he plays b5, I could probably sack my dead bishop for his knight on the outpost, and I could have like an outpost knight. That was my plan, possibly sacking the bishop. He goes bishop a3, attacking my rook, rook to e8. And I think somewhere around here, I played like 10 or more top engine moves in a row, or similar. It was insane when I analyzed this. I was surprised, but yeah, so I play bishop. No, he plays knight to b5. Trying to get the outpost here. The engine doesn't like his outpost on b5. But because he moved his knight from c3, I take up those dark squares with knight to e4 with the outpost. He castles, and now I take up my second outpost here, having pure control over this gap he created. And here he plays bishop takes b4, which is a very bad move, because he surrenders the dark square control of his bishop, and also his knight has nowhere to go here. I can trap it next move. So he plays queen to e1, allowing his knight to be trapped by c6. The engine recommended something like d2, and I didn't actually calculate this line, but I'm guessing that it's fine for white. I don't think he gets his knight trapped here anymore afterwards. But yeah, he doesn't find that move, and I play c6, trapping his knight. Queen takes b4, pawn takes b5, and he takes with the pawn here. And I play bishop to f8 because my bishop was not looking at anything. It was locked behind these pawns, and I wanted to take control over the dark squares because the battle is on the queen side right now. And I have queen side dark square control now after bishop to f8, queen to e1, and I play b6. Point of b6 is to stop any expansion on the queen side, and to potentially put my bishop there if there was ever a knight outpost after knight to e5 and c6. So I play knight to e5 here, bishop to c8, and he gets his outpost on c6. and I play queen to d6 best move, taking control, like strengthening the dark squares here. And a5 is played, which is a bad move because b takes a5, knight takes a5, and now he's kind of pinned, but not really. Well, actually he is, because his knight really cannot move anywhere at all. And instead of b7 here, I play d7, putting pressure on the pawn. And also, if he were to move back after trades, I could take his knight and take back with the queen. So d7 best move, f3. And here I have 1 minute left, and I quickly saw this move, but then I didn't like it, and I said, what if I put my knight here instead, forking and potentially taking the e2 bishop when the time is right, so I could take on b5 here. So I play g3. I now have 30 seconds left, and as you can see on the note here I put, from this point onwards I had less than 30 seconds. I was basically playing bullet with a 10-second increment here, and my opponent was playing fast. He did not let me think. So rook to f2, queen to b4 best move, putting pressure on the knight, and also asking for a queen trade, so my bishop puts pressure on the knight, and I still have control over the dark squares here. And he refuses. He plays king to h2, which now forces me to take the bishop on e2. So knight takes e2, rook takes e2, and queen takes bishop takes b5. Queen takes b5 is better here because it puts pressure on the knight. And I can put bishop to b4 here, but I play bishop takes b5, rook e to a2. Here I had like 16 seconds left. So, and I also realized that he's doubled up here, and I could just undouble his rook with the gain of tempo. So I play queen takes e1, which is the best move, I think. Rook takes e1, and then bishop to b4, putting pressure on the knight, and he's forced to waste the tempo, doubling up his rook again. So rook to a to e1. Now here, I was very low on time, and I should have played rook to a7, so I can prepare the double up. And if his knight moves, I just take his knight, because he actually has nowhere to go. After takes, bishop can take. Or after he goes here, takes, bishop can, or pawn can take. So this would have been amazing. Here I play rook to a6 instead. And he plays knight to b7, which forces the trade of rooks. And I play rook to c8, trying to get my rook on the 6th rank here. And he goes knight to c5, and I'm low on time here, and I thought, and I wanted to trade to gain some extra time here, because we're approaching the end game. So this wasn't the best move. I also calculated this entire line and that I would be pinned here, but I just wanted to play this move for extra time. So bishop takes c5, d takes c5, rook takes c5. Now here I'm better, but after rook to a5, I realized that it would take some time to think about some lines after this pin here. And so I play rook to c3, sacrificing my bishop to win some pawns. And I was also confident that my opponent did not have the skills to be good in this endgame here. I was confident in my endgame abilities here to win. But my opponent surprised me, and I underestimated him. That's why this game is 77 moves long. So rook takes b5, rook takes c3, king to g3, d4, rook to b8 check, g7, b4. I play king to f6, getting my king in, stopping him from going to f4. He plays rook to d8, putting pressure on my pawn. I play king to e5, he goes d7, threatening to take. And here, I didn't have much time to think, but I kinda thought that this would be a waste of move because I could probably do things here. But it was not really a waste of move because after b3 he takes, and I thought this gave me a free tempo to just take his passed pawn here. After rook takes h7, I realized that he's actually in time for whatever I do. So d3, rook to d7, which is actually a mistake, but I was well on time so I didn't see it. There's actually d4 here, potentially. And I missed it. But rook to b3 equalizes the game. King to f2. I go king to f4, stopping him from moving on the dark squares. He plays d4 check. I play f5. He plays e3. I play e5, attacking the rook. He plays g4 check. I play g5. He pins my pawn to the king. And I play d2, sacrificing my pawn so I can go to f4. King takes. King to f4. He attacks my g pawn. g5. f6 check. g3. Rook to f5. And here rook takes f5. And I believe he took the wrong pawn, in my opinion. But he plays e5. The rook takes c5. King to h4, protecting my g5 pawn here. King to e2. Rook takes h3. King to f2. King takes g4. Rook to e4 check. King to h5. King to g2. g4. Getting a rook outpost here. e5, rook to e5 check. King to h4. And here is basically a draw. But my goal is to try to get my rook out or make his king move so I could get my king in and create space here. But it was a draw. We kept going back and forth until I finally made him do a mistake and I won the game. So the reason why my notes have here to here is because from here to here, that's how long the draw basically lasted. So we have all these checks going back and forth basically. Now here I was trying to get his king over here so I could possibly go here or get my king up. And he finally makes a mistake with king to f2. And I was happy here. I go to h3. He goes c5. For a split second I thought h2, but I didn't really like this because this is as far as I saw with my low time. And I didn't see h3 here. So I checked to create space for my king. So after h5 I could go up. And king to e2 is played and I go king to g2. The reason it was equal here was because he had king to g1. And now I can't move that well. And I'm blocking my pawn. That's why it was a draw, but he moved forward again, so I was happy I took space with g2. And he played this move so quick, like most of this match, he had 11 minutes left on the clock, and I had 30. So I know his goal was to not let me think, because I had to make a move. And I'm happy I kept the draw from here to here. It was a very long process. I was happy I didn't make any mistakes that were fatal. And here I was happy when I saw this. I immediately played f2 check and I took his rook knowing that I won after king to f2 and a free promotion to a queen. And yeah, this is episode 5 of the Journey to Grandmaster series. If you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.